Hi everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Crate. I want to welcome everybody back this year, and I hope you're having a good year and had a great Christmas holiday. Today we're going to work on the Graphic 45 Birdsong album, and I've decided to do a 10.5 by 8.5, and so it's going to be a landscape format. And the Birdsong is a re-release of Graphic 45 collection, I think from 4 or 5 years ago. Anyways, I wasn't doing mini albums at the time it was released, so I was very anxious to work with this collection. It's very beautiful. The DCEs come with 12 double-sided images, and so you get 2 of each of those, so there's 24 in a pack. And I am planning on using 2 full packs. I'll show you at the end of this what's left over. But it is a rather large 10.5 by 8.5, so it's pretty good size format. So I'm thinking I'm going to use all of 2 collection packs, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So I've already constructed the album base units, the pages, and the cover of the book. So you'll need a total of 4 10 by 8 pocket pages, and I've already constructed those, so I'm going to set the others aside. I went ahead and, as I usually do, indicated which side the spine's going to be on, what page number it is, and there's page 2, spine, page 3, etc. through the end, all the way through page 8. So we're going to go ahead and get started on page 1. So I'm going to go back to kind of my normal format where I do 4-page designs, and I use that page design twice. So what we're doing on page 1 is also what we're going to do for page 8. So you may want to keep that in mind when you're trimming out your paper. You can trim it all at once, even if you don't do the installation all at the same time. Okay, so this is kind of, it's got a lot of features in it. So there's a lot going on. Just getting organized a little bit. So we're going to have a very large upper flap and lower flap, like so. And I actually may trim my lower flap a little bit shorter, but I haven't decided yet. So we're going to construct it first, take a look at it, and then at least get the top flap in and all its elements before I make a decision about making that shorter. So the first thing you're going to need is a 10 by 6.5 upper flap. So that's 10 by 6.5. You're going to score a 1/2 inch. So you have a finished 6 by 10 panel that's going to get adhered to the top of the pocket page. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. A little congested today, but hope everybody had a great holiday. I feel like it's been forever since I sat down and did anything for you guys on screen. Miss Julie was on holiday, so I was covering for shipping, so I didn't get a lot of creative time. So I'm feeling a little pressure to get some new content out. Okay, so again, this is page 1. This is the top. This is an upper flap. I am going to turn the whole thing around so I can see the edges, as usual, and get this top flap in. Okay, and this is a combination of some designs that I've done in the past. I put a couple of elements together from a previous one. So I'm going to be really fussy because this is so wide. This is sticking out a little, so I'm going to put in my trimmer and knock that little edge off. Okay, there, much better. Okay, so we've got our top flap in, and then now we're going to have 2 elements, 2 flaps that open left and right. And here they are. So you're going to have a left and a right. They're going to get installed right on top of this panel. So this is 5.5 by 6. You're going to need 2 of those. So it's 5.5 width, 6 inches tall. You're going to score a 1/2 inch. You're going to need 2. And again, everything we're doing, if you do it twice, you'll have what you need for page 8. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to dry fit it. I'm going to make sure it's not hanging past the flap. And it looks really good. I'm going to get a contrast page so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's my upper flap here. So I'm just making sure that this panel is the same height. It's not taller, not shorter than the flap that I'm going to apply it to. And it looks like it's right on. So we are good to go. I'm going to remove my tape and put down the left one. And then we'll come back and do the right. All right. Okay, we'll flip it over. Now we're doing the right side, right hand side. Okay, looks good. Okay, all right, so those are in. Now we are going to have one more feature on top of this, and that is two slanted pockets. And I think I did this in Oriental Garden. I'm pretty sure I had something very similar. Anyway, these panels are 5.5 by 5, 5.5 by 5. And you're gonna need a left one and a right one. You're going to score 2 out of the 4 sides and miter the corner. And then the 5.5 inch side is going to go down here after you've scored it. So you're going to have a finished 5 by 4.5 pocket or side pocket. So start with a 5.5 by 5, score on the 5 inch side and the 5.5 side. So you've got these 2 score lines that make this corner here. And then you're going to want to make sure that the 5.5, the side goes down here. It's 5 after you've put your score in, and the 4.5 goes this way. Hopefully that makes sense. And an easy way to remember it is once you get your score lines in, just turn it and you'll see it's the one that's the same width as the flap that it's being applied to. So you'll know your orientation is right if it's the same line as the flap, okay? All right, and I'll show that to you this way, make it a little easier. So you can see that matches. If I go this way, it doesn't come all the way to the edge, okay? So now, once you get these done and add your tape and get them all ready, we are gonna do one more thing to these before we install them. We are gonna go from this corner to this corner and cut a diagonal. And make sure that you're laying it down in your trimmer so that you're cutting across this way and not cutting your tape in half. So you're gonna go from one corner to the other. I'll show that to you after I finish cutting it. Now in the, I believe, in the Oriental Garden, I think I used a die here, but I'm just doing a straight diagonal, so it's gonna apply, it's gonna go like that, back in, okay? So now I'm gonna cut a diagonal from the upper right to the lower left. Okay. And as you can see, my tape is still intact on both sides. And now we're gonna lay these in just like so. So let me get my pick tool. And let's get this back up under the flap so I can see the edge of my papers. Okay, and I'm just going to go from this edge to the outside. There we go. And now we're going to do that one more time on this side. And I labeled mine left and right because of the way the tape goes in. You don't want to mix them up, but you don't have to do that. If you just do one at a time, you won't have much chance to mix them up. But part of the reason I did that is when I was trimming these out, I went ahead and made my page 8 too. Oops, that went down crooked. And I can tell because my pockets bubbled. So I'm gonna lift that real quick and straighten it out. Oh, it's tearing. Shoot. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Okay. There we go. Okay, there's my pockets. And then it's also on top of a flap. Now we're going to install this bottom flap. And I'm going to go back and look. So I did this 6.5. Double check, 6.5, yeah. So you know what? I had done 7.5, but I think I'm going to change this to 6.5. So 10 by 6.5. And that'll make it easy. You're going to do two, the upper and lower flap will both be the same size, 10 by 6.5. Okay, so I'm going to just trim this down to 6.5. And then score 1/2 inch, so you'll have a 10 by 6. 10 by 6.5 flap, lower flap, and you're going to score 1/2 inch along the 6.5 inch side. Okay, I'm going to put all of this up. I should have dry fit this first, but I can flip it this way and, oh, I guess I didn't trim this right. This must be 10.5 inches. So I need to make this 10 inches, so hang tight. I gotta go knock a 1/2 inch off this. Good thing I dry fit before I laid it down. Yep. I had the number written right, but the paper trimmed wrong. Hopefully, yeah, there's a pocket that goes down here. I want to make sure I did that correct, and I did. A little bit more. All right, that should be it. All right. There we go. So now there's my lower flap. You can see this is a large format, and when this is completely opened up, there is a ton of space for photos. So that is why I do believe I'm going to need 2 DCEs to cover this whole album. Now this is a 3.5. I said that wrong. So the width of this is going to be 11. And I'll write that, 11 by 3.5. 11 by 3.5. And you're gonna score on 3 sides. And that's gonna make a pocket that's gonna get applied right here. Apply that right there. And I like to do one corner at a time and then pivot until I feel like it's straight. There we go. All right, so there is page 1. Now, in addition to what you see here, we're going to add 2 elements. One is a 9.5 by 5.5 photo mat, and that's going to go right in these 2 pockets to keep these 2 left-right flaps in place. So go ahead and do that now. And then because we have this pocket, we're going to put something inside the pocket too. Right now I've got this 9.5 by 6.5 inch, which I probably want to make that shorter since I shortened this. 6, we don't want it to come outside of that. 6, yeah. So this should be 9.5. We're going to make this 9.5 by 5.5. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can size this any way you want, as long as it fits in the pocket, as long as it's not wider than the pocket. Okay, there we go. And then I'll cover these with designer papers at some point. There we go. Now it's in. And this will flip down like so. Okay, so the last thing we need to do on this piece is to add magnetic closures. And I'm actually going to use 2 large magnets because this is kind of a heavy element. So I'm going to start by just visually trying to make sure I've got enough clearance here to cover the magnet. And I think I do. All right. So just trying to make sure I've got enough space that I can completely cover the magnet and not show through the border. On both pieces. There we go. Okay, it is pretty tight, but it does work. And I definitely want it on the pocket because once I start putting stuff in the pocket, if the magnet were up here, you know, it really starts to lose its attraction. Okay, so in addition to what you see here as an insert, which is going to hold these 2 pages closed, I am also going to be using graphic 45 tags. So you'll have an insert that we've cut out plus 2 tags that are going to go left and right. And that is the completion of page 1, and this is also what we're going to do on page 8. Of course, we'll use different designer paper, but there you go. So thanks. I'll be back to lay in some of the designer paper in just a minute. Hey everyone, it's Daphne, and we're going to continue working on page 1. I've got all the designer papers ready, and hopefully they're all trimmed just right, but I will be doing some dry fitting just to make sure. So here we are with page 1. So I'm going to set all the trimmed pieces aside. Maybe. There we go. Couldn't seem to get a hold of it. And then we're going to start laying in some pieces. Okay, there we go. I just had these clips in here to hold everything kind of in order. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cover the front of my graphic 45 tags that are going to go in this pocket. Just to get these 2 pieces of paper out of the way. I know I don't have to dry fit these at all, so I'll go ahead and get these put in. Now, I've only covered the front, and the reason is I haven't finished my book, and what I'll do is I'll come and cover the backs, provided I have enough scraps, and then whatever I use is pretty much going to be dictated by what's left over. So I wanted to make sure the front coordinated for sure, and then of course it's okay to leave one side blank too, because it's likely to have a photo on the back. So if I don't have enough to cover it entirely, I'll probably at least put a decorative strip along one edge of it. And let my glue run down a little bit. There we go. I haven't used it today, so get the flow going. And I may have to get up in a minute and go let my dog in. It's very cold outside, and she's doing the gotta be in and out thing. She's driving me crazy. Okay. So, for those of you, I know a lot of you are return subscribers, some of you are new. This is, the base of this is a graphic 45 staple tag, and then what I'm putting on top is a die cut matted piece that fits perfectly because it's a graphic 45 die that makes it. We sell these in our shop, and there'll be a link below in the description. And if you are a graphic 45 fan and you like their tags, these dies are a must-have. One of the reasons I didn't used to use the tags is it was too hard to fussy cut and make a hole for the grommet. But that's all done for you with the die, so highly recommend it. I use it all the time now. Instead of making my own tags, I use the graphic 45 staples. And this album will have at least 4 tags in it, and they're the regular size. There'll be 2 on page 1 and 2 on page 8. And I may use some more inside, I haven't decided. But they won't be as much of a design element as page 1 and 8. Because these are really kind of the design elements for the gatefold here. There we go. I like this stripe. I think it's kind of masculine, but I like it. It helps to soften up some of the florals. Okay, so these 2 are done, so I'm going to set these aside. Let's pull our page back in. The next thing I'm going to do is, this is got a triangular pocket located here, and these are going to be the backdrop. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on getting these in. And I'm just dry fitting to make sure I'm happy with how they are fitting inside the pocket. And I am. Typically, I trim my mats down 1/8 inch shorter and 1/8 inch narrower so that I wind up with a 1/16 inch border all the way around. That's just the look I like. A lot of people like something a little bit wider, but I like it nice and tight. So if you'd like to get the same look, that's what you need to do. So you take the base panel. This one is 5.5 by 6, and of course you have to back off the 1/2 inch for the hinge, and then you want to back off another 1/8 of an inch to get the right size panel. Okay, just a second here. There we go. Oops, it's not sliding in for me. I'm gonna have to take that out and start over. I got too much glue on the top here. So I am using art glitter glue, which will dry clear. You can still see it a little bit, but it will dry clear. And basically what I think I need to do is make sure I'm heavier on the glue down here so I can get some slide. It dried too quickly on me. And of course, it doesn't have to be a rectangle. If you want to cut part of this off because it goes inside the pocket, you can. I didn't, but you can. And I just need to work a little faster. There we go. Hard to see the edge. There we go. There we go. Nice. Okay, I'm going to get myself there, a contrast sheet so I can see a little better what I'm doing, especially on the next one. Okay, so that's in, and I'm going to go ahead and do this one. And again, I'm going to check real quick, dry fit, and make sure it's the right size. And it looks good. I'd already inked the edges. I always ink the edges of my projects. I don't use a lot of ink. Really what I'm trying to do is just knock off that white edge. So it's really up to you. It's a personal preference for sure. I nudged it over a little. There we go. I'm going to burnish all this down. Sorry, I've got some stuff clipped on the back. I'm going to take that off so I can burnish. There we go. Much, much better. Okay, so those are in. The next thing I want to do is work on these two triangle pieces, which are going to go here and here. And I'm just taking a moment to make sure that my butterflies are going in the right direction. Okay, let's dry fit this. Make sure I've trimmed it enough. And I think I'm going to take a little bit more off here, which means I'll have to come back and ink it. Now let's try this. Much better. Okay, here's my ink, and I'm using mahogany. This is a powder puff. This is from a company called Quick Quotes. And I discovered this from a cropper, and I really love it. I don't use any other ink anymore. It does a great job of knocking the white off the edge. It doesn't make a mess on my hands, which is important. And the applicator is built in, so I don't have to go looking for my matching applicator. It's just part of the package. Again, these are powder puffs. The color I'm using is mahogany, and that's kind of my go-to color. If you like to distress inside the pattern, I would recommend going a little lighter. This is quite dark, but I really, like I said, pretty much just knock the white edge off my papers. I don't distress inside the pattern, so I tend to go dark. And almost always my books are black, so dark works fine. If you are working against cream, you might want to consider going a little bit lighter. So we carry a series of browns and a couple of grays and a black. They come in all kinds of colors, but those are really the ones that I use the most, and I think that are the most popular and most versatile. I didn't get quite enough glue to the edge here, so I'm going to go back and do that. Okay. All right, now there's a couple of ways we can keep this closed. One is to place something in it that crosses both panels, like so. That'll keep it closed. The other way is to, and I may do that, I haven't decided yet, is to use something with that overlays both pieces, like a piece of chipboard or an ephemera card or one of the cut-aparts, and I haven't really decided. I have originally planned to have an insert that spans both panels to lay across, and I did a similar design with my Oriental Garden, and I may do that, but I'm not going to cover that paper right now. I'm still focused on getting all my main pieces covered, so I'll see what I've got left over when I'm finished. And I do like the way this pattern shows up behind it, so I'm not sure I want to completely cover it, and that's why I'm kind of thinking about possibly putting a medallion here, and then I might be able to add a magnet on one side or another, or the other. All right, so those pieces are in. So the next thing I want to do, so this all, as you remember, these open, this will be covered, and this whole thing flips up like so. And we have a small pocket down here, and that's what I want to cover right now. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I decided to do here, just so you can see the whole look again, is this black pattern. And I thought it was a little bit dark, so I'm going to go ahead and take one of my cut-aparts and run a strip across here too. I'm not going to put this in just yet. I'm definitely going to put the black in. I'm going to hold off on this until I make that final decision here. So I will come back and do that after we've covered all the other spaces. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this piece in. I like to kind of get things installed so they're not floating around. This is directional, but you have to really look closely. There's birds' heads, and they should all be pointing up. They're kind of swans, or cranes is probably what they really are. So So you might have to, I need a larger contrast sheet, so just a second. Here we go. Just one, please. There we go. That'll make it easy for me to see my border and to make sure I'm where I want to be. And that looks good. So we can go ahead and take this off. I'm just reaching for my pick tool. I'm going to burnish the tape around it real quick. I like to add a little extra glue to the tape because it wants to grab right away. If you put some glue, then you can slide a little, which might be necessary to get it right where you want it. Start over, sorry. There we go. That's in. A little too much glue. And I just take the excess off with my fingernail. It will dry clear, so it's not necessary, but I also don't want anything else to stick to it. Just making sure that it is well adhered to the magnet and that the glue grabbed all the way around it, so there's not a gap here. All right, okay, and like I said, I'm seriously considering this strip here, but I need to make a decision about what I'm doing here first. I like this look, but if I put a medallion here, that might be a bit much. So right now I'm just going to tuck it in this pocket. I'm going to turn my tag sideways to keep my doors closed and tuck this in here. And we will go ahead and focus on getting this flap. So there's a flap right here. And let me see if I can find. So this is a pocket, and then this flap comes up, and then you've got all this space on the inside. So as you can see, there's a ton of room for photos. So hang tight. And I think we'll focus on getting this piece covered next and then start covering the rest of these. So I need to take a quick break, go deal with my dog, and I'll be back in a few. All right, I had to take a little break. Sorry about that, but we're going to continue working on page 1. So let's go ahead and open the top 2 flaps, the left-right flap, the gatefold, and we are going to add these pieces in here, and I'm going to give you the rough estimates for these, but basically what happens is I get my big pieces cut, and then I wind up coming back and doing some of these smaller pieces based on whatever I have left as scraps off a 12 by 12 sheet. But I'll give you an estimate. I think, yeah, these are 1.5 inches wide, and that is very arbitrary. I came up with 1.5 because it's easy to handle, it's easy to get in and out of the trimmer, and that is about all the science I put into that. Now I'm going to turn on my light, and you guys are going to see this huge difference. Yay! I'm so excited to have good lighting, and I'm really thankful that my husband bought that for me. So yay for me. Okay, I'm just dry fitting here, making sure everything looks good before I add some glue, and it does. And these pieces I'm sure I'm going to have to trim a little bit off of, but we shall see. Once I lay down the small piece, I'll trim down the orange piece to fit. It's close, but I think it's off a little bit. Okay. All right, I know I have a lot of subscribers that watch me pretty regularly, and then of course we're always picking up new people. So For those of you that have been around this year, thank you so much for taking time to spend with us here at Scrap and Create. And I apologize for repeating myself, but like I said, we're always getting new subscribers, so I sometimes say things over and over again. So one of the things that I'm going to repeat is the glue that I'm using is called Art Glitter Glue, which we sell in our shop, and I really love it. And then on top is a glue cap that I love. And the reason I like this one, there's others that you can get that have pins in them, is the cap. It's easy to find. It's easy to use. It doesn't roll onto the floor and get lost like my pen used to. So I just love that little pin. And we are currently, we're expecting more of these pin caps in the next couple of days. It's something that we like to try to keep in stock. All right, so that's in. All right, now I'm going to turn this sideways so I can get a better look at this edge. I'm going to lay this piece in first, get it where I want it, and then I'm going to come in here and trim this down to fit. And really, this strip could be any size. Like I said, it's pretty arbitrary based on the scraps that were left over after I trimmed out some of the bigger pieces. What you'll find when you're doing a large format like the 8.5 by 10.5 is you have to do a little bit more color blocking. Otherwise, you wind up needing, you know, a 12 by 12, multiple 12 by 12s just for one page and its interactions. So be prepared. You're not going to be able to trim everything whole if you're going to use a large format, or you're going to need a lot more packs. Okay, and I personally like color blocking. I think it just makes it more interesting, so that when you lay your photo on top of it, you've got this sort of collage background. Okay, that one's in. So now, I don't want it to overlap. I want the look to be a slight gap here so you can see the black, and it just sort of accentuates the color blocking. So I am looking to trim it, and I want to stay out of my score line here. So I'm just going to put a little pencil mark here where I think I need to trim it. I'm going to trim that down and test it. And because I'm trimming it, I'll need to re-ink that edge. So it's pretty close, but I need a little more. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'd rather trim it twice than cut it too short. Okay, there we go. That looks good. So I'm gonna re-ink my edge. And again, this is a powder puff, is the product, and it comes from a company called Quick Quotes. I'm using mahogany, and these are available in our shop. We have several colors of brown. If you like to do heavy distressing where you come into the pattern, I would recommend going a little bit lighter. If you're just like me and you just want to knock off the white core from the pattern, I like to go with the dark, and this mahogany goes very well with most, if not all, of the Graphic 45 collections. It's my favorite. Before that, they had a color called Espresso. They age out some of their colors. Espresso was very dark too, but they stopped carrying it, and I switched to this mahogany, and I'm very happy with it. All right, so that's in. You might hear a little bit of background noise as I'm working today because we have contractors in the house, which feels like an everyday occurrence now. They're doing some painting for us, so I can hear them taping off in the room next door. Okay, get this in. Okay, now we're going to need to trim this one down. And looks like I'm taking off about 3/16, but you're going to trim that down visually based on, you know, placing your paper in there. And this is color blocking is the reason I do not provide a cut list for the designer paper. It's just too easy to mess that up. And then, you know, it gives you some freedom to lay down your color blocking the way you want based on the scraps you have left over. So. And then the other reason is everybody likes a different border. I like a 1/16 inch border. Some people like an 1/8. Some people like a 1/4. That changes the cut size for these designer papers all over the place. So I give you the black cardstock cut list, and then you have to make some decisions on your own from there. If you are interested in making it exactly like this, basically the space you're going to need to cover needs to be an 1/8 inch narrower and an 1/8 inch shorter. And that will give you your 1/16 inch border. And then when you do color blocking, what I do is I cut these two pieces so they cover, so collectively they're an 1/8 inch narrower and shorter. And then I come back and do that last minute trim when I lay it in. And then other things can affect the size of this panel too, like the score lines. That takes up some of the paper. So this actually winds up being a little bit shorter on the inside than it is on the outside. Little tiny things like that. Okay, so that is in, and then we're going to open it up and we're going to start laying in the center pieces. So this is what I've trimmed out for the center. And now that I'm looking at it, this is a lot of orange, isn't it? So I'm going to have to think about this for a second. And I was planning on doing this grid here. So I think that's what I'm going to do is start with the grid. So I'll set these aside. Actually, I take it back. I'm going to set all those aside. I still need to finish covering this flap here. Sorry, I hit my own desk. So this is a flap with a pocket in it. And this is the paper that I've designed to go cover the rest of this flap. So I'm going to put that in first. And then we'll open it up and start working on the inside. There's a lot of activity on page 1. There's a lot of interactivity, and it takes a lot of paper to do page 1. So there's some things that you could do to simplify it. You could do the upper lower flap and, sorry, my tags are slipping out. And then not necessarily do these two flaps. Just make it this panel, take these off. So there's some things you can do to simplify it, but it is quite a bit of paper. So be forewarned. Okay, I want it to go in this way because I want this orange on the edge. And then I want this back under here so I can see the edge of this panel. Okay, that's in. There we are. Okay, now we can open it up and start thinking about what we're doing in here. And I'm gonna set these tags aside for now. I am going to turn it sideways just because it makes it easier for me to see these edges. I'm gonna lay down this piece of paper here. So that's the edge that I'm coming to. You can see there's the flange that's attached. You may or may not be able to see that, but it's there. And then it's gonna go here. So these 4 pieces are going to lay in like so. So I'm gonna need to trim these down to fit just right. I'm gonna move that out of the way, and I'm gonna make sure I'm doing this correctly. That is up, so I wanna make sure my patterns are going the right direction. And these should all be the same size. And the way I trimmed them out initially is just to fit the space with no border around them. So I'm gonna need to trim all of these down just a little bit so that we get that border. And the way I'm going to do that is I am going to trim them all at the same time so they all wind up being the same size. What do I mean by that? I mean I'm going to stack them in my trimmer and trim them collectively. That's a little tricky because a lot of times when you lay it down, sometimes your papers might shift. So you might need to be, you know, pretty careful about it, but they all should wind up being the same size. And you can trim them individually, but I'm going to do it once all together. Or that's the goal. So I took an 1/8 inch off this side. Now I'm going to take an 1/8 inch off the width or the length. Okay, and I got a little hung up here, so I'm going to have to come back and trim that just a bit. It didn't cut straight. There we go. Okay, I'm going to lay these in now and do a test, and I'm guessing I'm going to have to trim just a little bit more. But like I said, I'd rather trim twice than cut it too small and have to go get another piece of paper altogether. Oops, that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm gonna go like this, like this. And so in the end, I want this perfect cross in between all the panels. And it's a little challenging because it is black and tan, so it's hard to look at. Okay. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Okay, I'm going to turn it this way and take a look at it from all angles. Just make sure I'm happy with it. My trimmer didn't go all the way through the paper there, so. And these are just flip sides. So I think I'm going to use these two because it says dream and this one says happiness, and then I'll flip these two over to be the fans. That is what I'll do. So this way the two cream fans are going this way and the black fans are going out, or I can have them all go in the same direction. I haven't decided. I think I like it like that. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do to visually inspect this is I'm going to add ink to all my edges and lay them in again dry fitted and see if it still looks very even. Sometimes that white border jumps out at you and it makes it hard to see that the distances between each of the panels is equal. So I'll knock that white edge off. And if you use these ink pads, these quick powder puffs, you'll notice that I start in the center and push out. And the reason I do that is because this is a very soft sponge, and if you go this way and you catch the corner, it starts to wear on the sponge pretty quickly, and it will leave, and you can see right there, little gouges in it. And then at some point, they get so big, they actually start to flake off. So always start from the center and push out so you're not catching your corner. All right, that looks very good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to butt these side to side. Like so, and I just want to make sure they're even. And I can see that they're not quite even, so that needs to be trimmed just a little bit more. All right, now let's see. Nice. And I'm being very precise. I'm estimating, but I'm taking like a 1/16 of an inch, or no, a 32nd of an inch off it. Very, very little. Okay, good. So what I want is that to be even on both sides, so when you're visually looking across, there's not a step on either side. Okay, that looks very good. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these two. And I think even though I tried to trim them all together, it did torque a little bit, and that's what's causing my problem here. Yeah, because when I look at it on this side, it's even, but when I go over here, it's not, and that means that it torqued in the trimmer. So my idea of trimming everything all at once, although it was a good idea in theory, in practice, it didn't really work out. We did. Still off a little bit. It's very little, but a little bit. I'm having a hard time with this. I'm gonna knock that white edge off. All right. So, even though I like the look of color blocking, it is kind of a pain, as you can see. Definitely not a fast process. All right, so let's go ahead and start laying these in. Here we go. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing my edges. There we go. So that is the edge. And when I say edge, I'm putting it right on the score line. Trying to anyway. Okay, there we go. Okay, well, I'm going to do my best. Very hard to see here. Okay. Let's get some glue on this, get it in. I need to make a commitment here. And I'm visually trying to get that nice perfect square. But the thing to remember too is at the end of the day, there's going to be photos on top of this. So there's a good chance that that's not even going to be revealed. So don't drive yourself crazy with it. Now I can see I pushed, these are down too far, but it is what it is. Because I can't really see the edges very well. I'm really struggling. So this band here is going to be wider than the one here, and I'm not crazy about that, but I'm okay. I can live with it. Now I'm going to show you something that you can do to cover that up, or to mask it. Whole thing this way, and yeah, I'm just making sure my words are going the right direction after all that. Sorry, this is taking forever. Aren't you glad the next two pieces are solid? You have to wait so long. All right, so I have to say I'm a little disappointed in this, but I am going to show you a technique to cover it, and you can do it with two things: paper or ribbon. And I am going to use paper. Okay. Okay, so you can see that my cross didn't turn out the way I hoped. And that happens sometimes. Some days everything just goes down and I don't even have to think about it. And then other days I really have to work hard. So now what I'm gonna do to make that look even is I'm gonna cut 2 strips of paper and I'm gonna lay them down in that cross pattern. And I like the black, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wind up putting maybe some orange in here in a cross pattern. And I walked in here, I'm digging through my paper real quick, without any paper to put there. So I'm going to have to come back to that after I lay these panels down. So the other thing you could do is just cut 2 strips of black cardstock, which I also don't have, but I'm just going to show a demonstration. So I'd say about 1/8 of an inch is what I need, but we're going to check it real quick. So this is a 1/8 inch strip of paper. So it's going to work out perfectly for this one, but I think it might be a little shallow for this one. So the idea here is that you want this, whatever the strip is that you trim out, to be wide enough to cover your gap, like so. And it actually, without leaving black trim on either side, because then it'll just make this look whiter because we're going to use black here. So it's a little over 1/8 of an inch, but whatever you decide to do this way, and then you get that really clean unified look. And then if you don't want them overlapping here in the center, you can trim that right and put one piece on each side, and it just nestles right in between. So another look would be, that's 1/8. And this is a 1/4 inch, a nice 1/4 inch. And then it would overlap slightly going both ways. And again, I wouldn't do it in white. I would do it either in black or a coordinating, something that coordinates with this. In this case, it would probably be the orange or black. You could also use tan. And then you get that nice clean look. So I'm very disappointed that I did this, but I didn't want to waste this paper. So that's how I'm going to make sure I use it. And then this is a technique to help you cover that boo-boo and then get that unified straight line look that you're after. So if you find that when you're laying it in, you can't make it all work out, make sure your outside edges all look clean. And if they do, you can mask the center. If this edge is off, it'll visually stick out even after you fix this. So you can see these are not even on the inside, but I put real effort into making sure these edges were smooth and straight, as well as the ones on the edge here. Okay, so you don't see a big gap like that. Okay, so that's that. I will come back and I'm going to put a black cross in there when I'm done. But let's go ahead and lay these in since I have them and they're trimmed, and I think they're almost ready to go. I'm just double checking to make sure. Yeah, they're actually trimmed out and they're slightly different. That just happens. Paper doesn't always cut square, or you wind up not having a straight score line or some slightly different thing that makes this panel a little smaller or larger than the other panel. So I always wind up dry fitting and coming back and doing that detailed trim to fit. Most of what I come in here with when I start videotaping is sort of rough trim. It's pretty close, but oh, it's not inked. It's not, it's worth checking again. All right, we're coming to the end. And I hope I did a better job trimming page 8, which is the same flap design, but different designer paper. I'll go back and double check that offline so you guys don't have to sit through all that tedium that I did here. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good year so far. How bad can it be 2 days in, right? I feel so far behind schedule for you guys, so I'm really going to try to ramp things up here and get some stuff out for you. Okay, it looks like I'm going to turn this around so I can see all the edges. And rather than lean over, because then you just see the top of my head, I like to bring the edges to me so I can see what's going on. And this looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. So I'm going to get some glue on it and we're going to lay it down. And this page 1's almost in the can. So what's coming up for me? So the next exciting thing on my calendar is in a couple of weeks, I will be in Arizona doing Creativation, and that's exciting for you guys too, because that is where Julie and I get to look at all the new products and paper lines that are coming out and give you guys some previews of what you can expect us to have in stock soon. So I'm kind of excited about that. That's going to be I gotta go back and look at my calendar. Maybe it's the 3rd week of January. So it's coming up. So I definitely want to get this out, and I'm going to try to get one more album out before we go off to Arizona. And we'll be there for a week. But while I'm there, I am going to make better use of my camera and capture some of the inspiration that we see when we're there. Last year I didn't do a very good job of that. I get so caught up in the product and the releases that I forget everybody else wants to see it too. But I'll try to do a better job of getting pictures out on our blog so that you guys can see what's going on at Creativation as well. So there it is. There is page 1. So what's missing here is going to be a large insert, which I have trimmed out and we cut it as part of the black cardstock, but I don't have it covered yet, and I won't do that till I get the rest of the pages done, because I seriously doubt that I'll be able to use a whole piece of paper here. I'm going to have to do some color blocking based on the scraps that are left over. But as you can see, it's a pocket that goes the full width. So it'll probably, at a minimum, you know, it'll be probably 9.5 by 5.5, and it'll fit in here, and you'll be able to get 2 photos on it, or I might make 2 small tags. I haven't decided. Right now it's cut out as a single piece. I don't have in here another insert that's going to go in here, and it's going to go landscape, and it is what's going to keep these 2 flaps closed. When you go to open this, as you can see, the flaps want to move around, so you have to have something in it in a landscape form to keep the flaps intact. Or you could use magnets, but that's not what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on having these tags and another large tag horizontally placed behind these. So that is it for page 1. I'll go through that one more time. There's the inside gatefold flap. On the first flap are 2 tags. I'm going to lay these in sideways so I can open it. Large photo mat space here. Another place for tags and a photo mat. And then this opens down like so. So this is a very large format, and just on this alone, I mean, you can get 4 photos here, front and back, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 photos if you're doing 4x4 or smaller, and maybe you could do, let's say, I don't know, 15 if you're actually putting in some 5x7s, which you could easily do on the center pages. So thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Daphne. That is the end of page 1. I'll be back soon, and we'll be working on page 2.